Hey, we are working through this edit right now, and something dawned on me that tomorrow, or today when you're watching this on YouTube, will be the 1-year anniversary from when I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm currently sitting at like 95, 96,000, something like that. Maybe 100 after this video goes viral. But I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for what you've given me and how you've allowed my life to change. I also wanted to say that, if you don't hit the like button after that heartfelt message, then you're dead to me. Hello and welcome back. Today I want to talk about investors and using investor money, also known as OPM, other people's money, to accelerate the growth of your short-term rental business. And so I'll be talking a little bit about my experiences and the structures that I'm currently working out with investors at the moment. And I'm also going to be doing a real-world deal analysis, so you're going to want to stick around until the very end to see how I'm crunching some of these numbers with some of the partners that I'm taking on. Kind of giving me the wrong kind of mustache vibes here, but wife says that she likes me with the mustache. Gotta buy. She says I look like Freddie Mercury. We are the champions, my friends.
6.5 hours later.
Of the world. All that from a mustache. that entire rabbit hole. I want to talk a little bit about my story and my experiences with partners and investors and everything like that. For the most part, I didn't really ever have a lot of money whenever I got into the Airbnb business, but I did want to expand my portfolio. So because I didn't have money, I was willing to work for free and take on partners who would fund the different projects that I was working on, and I would chip in with what's called sweat equity. I would hustle, I would work, I would help run the business, and that would be the value that I brought. This was the case with Casa Mariposa. My partner and I took an improv class together. We were standing outside of a bar after one of our shows one time, and he said to me, I want to get into real estate. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm building this tiny house in Joshua Tree. It's totally awesome. And he was like, man, I want to do that. How do I get in on that? And I was like, well, unfortunately, I don't have any money, so there's not really anything we can work on. And he was like, well, I've got some money saved up. How about I fund it all? I'll pay for it, and you teach me how to build a house and how to build houses. And that's exactly how it went. And so he funded Casa Mariposa, and we just sold that house a few months ago and made a $350,000 profit on that specific house. And then we've purchased 3 houses since. We just bought 47 acres on the East Coast, and we're gonna be building anywhere from 4 to 10 houses in Joshua Tree this upcoming year. And that entire sequence of new constructions and Airbnbs all came from the fact that I was willing to work for free to get into a deal with someone who was willing to fund it. I had a similar experience here in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I had 2 really good friends that wanted to get into the short-term rental game, and they said, can we partner up? And I was like, well, I don't have capital, but if you can fund the purchase and bring the borrowing power, I can show you how to Airbnb. I can run the business. I can message. I can show you the ropes. We can do this together. You can learn, and then you can go and start your own short-term rental portfolio after this house. And that's exactly what happened. And since then, they've gone and they bought a really nice beach property that I think is going to gross anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a year. And I'm really happy with how that arrangement panned out. Now, one of the important details on that deal, since they were willing to incur the risk, associated with putting the capital down, taking out the loan, was I said, well, hey, we'll pay you back first before I ever take a dime out of it. So not only am I going to help run the business and show you how Airbnb works, but we're also going to be paying you back first. And as soon as you get paid back, then I start taking a profit from it. So really on that specific deal, I'm going to be working for free for about 1.5 years before I ever see a dime on it. But I know it's going to be worth it because in the long run, I'm going to have equity in that house. I mean, just since we purchased that house for $324,000 last September, the price of that house has gone up significantly, maybe about $150,000 or so. And it's set to gross about $70,000 a year. Now you take out all the expenses from that house, I think we're going to be left with a profit of roughly $35,000 to $40,000 a year, meaning my half of that will be about $20,000 a year that I'm going to get forever, for as long as I own that house, because I was willing to work for free with these partners, and it's totally worth it. Now I will say where I am in my career, with how limited my time is, with how much my expertise has really grown since I've gotten into the short-term rental journey, I'm now reworking my structures with investors. We'll get into that a little bit later, but when you don't have a lot of money and you're getting into real estate, you got to get creative, and we've all got to start somewhere. And as you gain experience and as you get really good at making money and making money for other people, then you can start formatting deals that not only favor you, but are a win-win for you and your investor. Okay, new day here. The next day, it's now 2 p.m., not 2 a.m., and just looked at last night's footage. Hair looking a little crazy. Thought y'all had my back. No one said a single thing about how insane my hair looked. Look, I'm a little tired, okay? We just had a baby. He's 2 weeks old. Y'all know I wasn't sleeping before. Definitely not sleeping now. So when I have a hair meltdown, I appreciate a little nudge in the right direction, all right? All right, I'm glad we had this talk. Anyway, my goal whenever I'm working with investors or taking on partners or taking someone else's money is to find deals that really are mutually beneficial for both of us. While an investor might be willing to fund the purchase of a house, even though it is like a free house for me in a sense, I have to find a house that comps out and provides a good ROI for not just the investor, but for me too. You know, it has to be something that's mutually beneficial to both parties. So I'm not just going out there and buying anything. I'm going out there and I'm finding something that has a cash on cash return of anywhere from 20 to 50% for the investor after we split the profits. Ultimately, it has to be worth my time. It's definitely going to be worth the investor's time because the way that we're structuring things is that it's a completely passive investment for them. So as long as we're providing a great ROI, it's sort of a win-win. And one really big thing to consider, and this is sort of my mindset and philosophy when working and taking other people's money, is that when you're taking someone else's dollar, you have to think of that dollar as being 4 times more valuable than yours. Meaning, if you lose someone else's dollar, I want it to feel to you as if you lost 4 of your own dollars. So if you take someone's $50,000 and you lose it, I want it to crush you in the way that it would feel if you were to lose $200,000. If you start treating other people's money as significantly more valuable than your money, then you will work your ass off to save money, to stay on budget, to stretch their dollar as far as you can, and to really make the most strategic decisions possible. Now, there is a moment in which you try to pinch pennies too much and you overanalyze and you get stuck in analysis paralysis on what decisions to make because you're trying to save $5 here versus $10 over here. It's kind of like this weird mental conundrum because you want to save money for other people, but you also want to save time because time is also money. So there's definitely a balance that you have to strike there, and it's not really something that you're going to figure out at the very beginning. You're going to be so budget focused at the very beginning of it, but then as you start to develop your own investment principles and philosophies, you'll really start to understand the value of time, and that'll help you really round out your decisions. So it's not something you learn overnight. It's something that you find out the hard way over and over and over again. Luckily for me, having done this for 4 years, I can make quick decisions and take all the emotion out of it because I've seen a thing or two. Oh God, I've seen a thing or 3 or 4 or 5. I guess I'll just wrap up this point by saying that you need to take other people's money very seriously. They worked for it. They worked hard to make that dollar. You need to work harder to save that dollar and to make it go further than they ever could. Out of respect, really. I mean, if they're taking a risk on you, then you owe it to them. So let's analyze a deal structure that I'm actually working with investors, and hopefully it can help guide you as you start to take on investors and working with other people's money and partnerships and everything like that. Keep in mind, it's not going to be apples to apples. You may not be able to command exactly what my deal structure is, just because if you've never done it before, then you have to build up that trust and that rapport. Me, I'm pretty seasoned. I know what I'm doing here. I have a platform that talks about my successes. I show my successes. It's a little bit easier for someone to take a risk on me. So if you're starting out, I don't want you to be married to this exact structure, but use it to guide how you structure your deals. But the cool thing here is that the spreadsheet that I'm about to show you is completely sensitive, and you can change the numbers and adjust it to how you see fit, and it's yours to download for free 99. What can I say besides you're welcome? No, but seriously, it's yours for free. I wish I had something like this when I got started, so go forth and prosper, my little chickadees. Back. Stupid. The way I really see the specific structure is that there are 2 roles. There's the brains and then the bankroll. Since I'm usually seeking capital, then I'm typically the brains. I'm the one that's setting up the operation, doing everything, running it. And then what I'm really seeking out from an investor for the most part is a silent partner, someone who just lets me do my thing, lets me run with my creativity, and isn't questioning me along the way. Now, you may not always run into investors that are that flexible. They might want to be in the weeds with you. And if that's the case, all good. You'll have someone to help you pick up the slack. But whenever they aren't silent partners and they want to be involved, it's a little tougher for you to sell your value because since you're not the one doing all the work and they're helping you with the work and they're bringing the capital, then your role really starts to diminish in that partnership and it could lead to a little bit of resentment. So for that reason, I always pitch it to investors. Hey, silent partner, it's gonna be totally passive to you. I'm gonna do my thing and I will mail you money. I'll send it via carrier pigeon. I'll Venmo you, PayPal you, send you Bitcoin, whatever they want, however they want to structure the terms of the deal. So here are the details on the deals that I'm working out with all the investors that I'm working with right now. They will bring the capital, they will bring the borrowing power, meaning they are funding the down payment. They're the ones that are qualifying for the loan. And then generally speaking, me and my partner are then added to title. From there, and we've done this a few different ways, but right now the way that we're kind of running forward is we establish what's called a JV, also known as a joint venture, in which we outline, the deals of our partnership. And the deal is that it's a 50-50 split. Investor gets 50% equity, my team gets 50% equity. In exchange, we set everything up, we run everything, we manage it, we message everyone, we coordinate with all of our cleaners, we set up the furniture, we literally run that entire business for them, we do the bookkeeping, and we send them their part of the profits every single month. So generally my investors, partners, whatever you want to call them, will go out and get pre-qualified. Once we have an idea of what they can qualify for, I will then go out and identify the property, put the offer in. Once we close, it really is hitting the ground running and really establishing a business from the ground up very quickly, a lot of the times in a weekend. Pretty much every Airbnb that I've ever set up has been in a weekend because I used to work a full-time job. But now that I'm jobless, and well, YouTube's my job. Y'all are my job. Theoretically, I'll have more time than 2 days to go and set up these awesome Airbnbs. So I know what you're thinking. Whoa, 50%, dude, that's like so much equity, bro. Do the numbers even work out on something like that? Yeah, it does, and I'm gonna show you exactly how this type of structure really benefits any investor. If you can really sell yourself to that investor and really prove your worth and really show that you have hustle, then it really does end up being a win-win. So looking at this property right here, it's $849,900. This is a little bit more premium. Honestly, these are the types of deals that I like to take on a lot more these days, specifically because I think a luxury house like this in this specific market has a lot more room to appreciate than like a cheap remodel. And the actual profit margins on something like this are just significantly better. I want to just show you this house and what I like about it. It is a 3.5. It is 2,170 square feet. So clicking into the photos here, you can see it really is a vibe. It is very much a modern desert home. It's all white stucco. It's not smooth stucco. You guys know I like Santa Barbara stucco, but that's okay because the rest of the house really does make up for it. But yeah, I don't think a lot of homes like this exist in the Joshua Tree market. To me, while it is a very premium price point, it's a little bit scary and alarming. I think that this is gonna yield some pretty crazy high numbers. And I think people agree because I actually approached several investors about this. About 8 people responded to me about this specific deal, and within the next day it was gone, and we didn't even have the time to put an offer on something like this. So all to say that when I'm working with investors, before we really go down too deep into the rabbit hole, I do require that they be pre-approved so that we don't have to wait days or a week for them to get pre-approved and miss out on specific properties because A, things move very fast, but B, whenever we're identifying properties, it takes a lot of our time to do that, a lot of our effort and resources. So when you have your investor on board, you have to set up your systems and your processes in a way that allow you to pounce on an opportunity when you see it. Or else you're just gonna spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and you're never gonna close a deal. So we've identified the property, okay? And then the next step is we're gonna actually do market research, run comps, and try to come to an educated guess on what we think it can bring from a nightly rate standpoint and on a yearly basis. Now, I have an entire video that shows you how to comp out a short-term rental deal. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm gonna leave a link right here. I highly recommend that you check it out. It's gonna give you a lot of useful information on how to project numbers accurately. So with that, we've already analyzed this property. We've done a lot of market research. We've talked to a lot of people in the area, and we found that we can get at least $600 for this property. Now, on really high ticket weekends or on holiday weekends, festivals, all that kind of stuff, it can even go up to $1,500 a night. I have a friend that has an Airbnb about 10 minutes away from this, and she's regularly bringing anywhere from $600 to $1,400 a night, and her place is absolutely crushing it. And this place has a very similar aesthetic. It's brand new. It's got very beautiful interior design. Architecture is great. It's got a pool. It checks all the boxes. But on the low end, we're gonna say $600 here. So let's break down these numbers really fast. As I said, this specific spreadsheet right here is sensitive in all the different categories, meaning if you go in and change one specific cell, it will go and affect everything else and recalculate everything. So as you can see here, the cost of the house is $850,000. And then typically we're going for a 10% down payment on this. That's really gonna depend from mortgage broker to mortgage broker, but we haven't had a lot of pushback on that. Our down payment here is going to be $85,000. Estimated closing cost here is going to be 3.5%, bringing our closing cost to about $29,750. And again, that's going to change depending on what state you are. This is for California. Our setup fee, this is our fee that we charge to go out to the property, book our flights, meals, our time to actually go out there and set it up in a weekend or in a week. That's what we pay someone. So this is really a break even for us. We're not actually making money on this. This is just our hard cost to get the property up and running. Furnishings for this specific house, we have them at $35,000. Now, for the most part, your furniture is never gonna really cost you $35,000. Casa Conejo, my 300 square foot tiny home, I think all the furniture in that place was about $6,000. We really did step it up for Casa Mariposa, my 800 square foot small home in Joshua Tree. That is a 2-2. We spent about $20,000 on that furniture just because I like interior design. I like spending money on furniture. I think you'll get that money back pretty quickly because you can raise your price and you can really advertise that it's a luxury experience. So for this one, we have $35,000. Honestly, that might even be on the low side for something like this, but we could get it done for that. And then we have our legal fees, which are about $1,500. Adding all of that up, our estimated cash to close would be $154,250. So again, this is a luxury house. This is not what we're doing for every single investor, but for those investors that have the capital to do it and are comfortable for this investment, the ROIs really do work out here. So going with an interest rate of 3.5%, a loan term of 30 years, our loan amount is going to be $765,000. Then our principal and interest will come out to about $34.35. Our home insurance will be about $283 a month. And then our taxes would be $708 a month as well. So adding all of that up, that brings our monthly payment to $4,426 a month. That's a lot. It is a lot, but let's work through this, okay? So if we list our place here at $600 a night and we have an 80% occupancy, which I do actually feel is fairly conservative. I mean, Casa Conejo, I think the occupancy there was about 98% this year, 99%, somewhere in there. I mean, I've only had a handful of days open. Now, granted, that is very marketable. It's a tiny house. It's YouTube's most viral tiny house, so it is always booked. But Casa Mariposa was also about 100% booked as well. All of my other properties typically run anywhere from 80 to 100%. Really just depends on the season. A lot of my properties run 100% occupied. It really just depends. So I really think for a luxury, badass place like this, 80%, a little bit on the low side, but for the sake of estimating conservatively here, I'm good with that number. So our yearly expenses are going to be $84,642, and that really is accounting for things like your OTA service fees, which are 3%. OTA just means online travel agency. It's a fancy way of saying Airbnb's fee or VRBO's fee or whatever. So that comes in at about $5,200 a year. Our maintenance about $6,800 a year. Probably ridiculously high for a new construction. We'll probably spend less than $1,000 on maintenance, but it's good to plan for it, and then we can always cut ourselves a check at the end of the year and have little bonuses. That's all great. Utilities are typically going to be about $7,200 a year on something like this. Again, that might be a little high because this house might be super energy efficient, but we'll call it an average of about $600 a month. Our management fee here is 7%, and I want to talk about this a little bit. This management fee comes out to $12,264 a year, and that is being paid to me, my company, my team. Now, I do want to really emphasize that 7% is truly just a break even. Typically on a long-term rental, a property manager is going to charge you anywhere from 7 to 15% to manage your property. Now that number skyrockets with Airbnb because there's so much more work involved with that. And so typically a property management company on the short-term rental side of things can charge you anywhere from 15 to 30%. And yeah, that's a really big chunk of your monthly revenue, and that can be detrimental to your cash on cash return, your ROI, your IRR, all that kind of stuff. Now for us, that 7%, that's really quite modest. And that really is just to cover our staff to handle messaging, cleaning coordination, maintenance people, all that good stuff that goes into managing a short-term rental property. That really is a break even for us because we will be getting 50-50 from the profits after that on top of 50% of the equity. So if we ever do sell down the line, then we get a nice chunk of cash too. So really that break even number is our compromise so that we can get into a deal like this. So after all of those fees are deducted, our net profit will be $90,558 on this specific deal. Now remember, the percentage to the investor is 50%. So what that investor is gonna get every single month is $3,773 a month on this specific deal. Now what that's gonna add up to over the course of 12 months after all costs have been deducted is $45,279. So here's where it gets really, really cool. The cash on cash return for this specific deal after the investor has gotten 50% of the profits is 29.35%. with a payback period of roughly 40 months. So to put this in perspective, on a long-term real estate deal, a lot of the times I see a lot of people that are taking anywhere from a 3 to 10% cash on cash return. But really seasoned long-term investors are typically seeking out anywhere from 10 to 15%, and then sometimes they can even get up to 20%. So if you're a long-term investor, back me up here, leave me a comment with some of the cash on cash returns you're getting in your long-term properties, or let me know if I'm completely off base, which I don't think I am because I'm friends with a lot of long-term investors who see things like this and they're like, well, cannot compute. 30% ROI is amazing. And you know, it's really funny to present my deals to them and the types of numbers that I'm getting because they always squash long-term investments. And even taking that to the stock market, most people are getting 6 to 8%. If they can get 10% on their money every single year, that's amazing. Now, we're not gonna count 2020 in this just because that was obviously like a crazy year and that a lot of volatility, a lot of unprecedented gains. But for the most part, when you average what kind of returns you're getting in the stock market over the course of investing for 30 years, I think most people are averaging averaging anywhere from like 4 to 8%. But let's just say they're the best stock trader in the world and they get 10% on their money every single year for 30 years. If you've ever done that, please contact me and tell me your secrets. But let's just say it's 10%. This cash on cash return of 29.35% is literally 3 times that. No, I guess it's not literally, it's a little less than 3 times. Okay, it's like metaphorically 3 times that, almost literally 3 times the amount that you can expect to get on an amazing return in the stock market. Now let's look at these 2 tables over here, which is your 10-year payout, and it'll show you that for 10 years you're gonna make $45,278. Now of course it's gonna fluctuate a little bit here, but just going with the average and with what we're predicting, by the end of those 10 years, your total profit, $298,538.49 off of your initial $154,000. Now the reason we have it at 10 here is because we're modeling this based on the idea that in 10 years from now, we will sell the property. And we have our sale price here of $1,024,000, which is gonna be pretty low. I mean, I think it's gonna be a lot more than that. And that's really our estimate of what it's gonna be worth in 5 years from now. And we're just going with standard appreciation on this. So if we did sell our property for roughly $1 million here, the cash on cash return is gonna be the same, 29.35%, but then the IRR, the internal rate of return, levered is gonna be 36%. The IRR unlevered is gonna be 7%. This is for those of you that like to geek out all the way down to the nth degree. Let's just say that a 36% IRR is absolutely amazing because a lot of the times people are going for that 10% number. And then what we're gonna be making in the deal after our 50% and that 7% management fee is $57,543. Now, if you want to get even crazy with this and you say, okay, Rob, well, I don't think I'm going to get an investor to give me 50% equity and put all the cash in. Well, the kind of structure that you can work out if you really want to is that you take 20 or 25% of the profits until the investor is paid back, and then after that, you get 50-50. It's what's called a waterfall structure, and it basically is a very investor-forward way of saying, hey, we're gonna try to get you paid back since you're the one with all the skin in the game. I'm gonna take a little bit off the top, but then once we've paid you back, then we're true partners. And you can structure that here a few different ways. So I have it here, the partner split, what they're gonna get in that first year, if this is what you can sell them on, is 80% profits. That investor will get 80% of the profits, and you can see that it actually drops the payback from 40 months, about 41 months, down to 33.5 months. So it shaves off over 6 months in their payback schedule. Now you could also do 75% if you want a little bit more skin in the game, and that drops them down to 34%, and then you get 25% of the profits. You can mess around with this so many different ways. It's obviously gonna depend on your investor, but remember, that property, okay, I said was gonna bring in a base of $600, anywhere from $600 to let's say $1,000. So if we could average an $800 nightly rate on something like this, just take a look at how these numbers change, okay? So now the net profit goes up to $143,000, up from $90,000. So it's almost $50,000 more in profit. So what that partner gets every single year is $71,559. Now take a look at this cash on cash return, 46.39%. Remember when I said 10% is pretty good? Imagine getting 4.5 times that. That's amazing. And then their payback is 25 months, 26 months. That's just over 2 years. If you can put your money into an investment and get paid back in 2 years, that is absolutely amazing. So hopefully you can start to see how this is a win-win for both parties. And again, remember, you can download that spreadsheet completely for free down in the description below. So you've seen the numbers, and I said that it's a win-win for everybody, so why? Let's list these points out. This is completely passive for the investor. The returns can be anywhere from 2 to 5 times that of a traditional investment, like real estate or the stock market. And there's upside at the end of the road, so not only is it a passive investment, but if we ever do decide to sell this property, we also get the equity and the appreciation. We get a nice little chunk of change if we ever sell it. And then obviously a little bonus of investing with me typically is the marketing, right? I'll go and I'll tour the property, I'll promote it on YouTube. Obviously that's not applicable to everybody, but it's applicable to me. Let's get into some of the objections here. I think a lot of people get in their head, like, why would anyone want to trust me with this? Why would someone give me their money instead of doing this on their own? This is something that I hear very often with glamping. Why would someone want to lease me their land instead of starting their own glamping operation? Why would someone want to buy this house and give me 50% equity when they can do it themselves, right? And as I mentioned earlier, the reason is because time. Time is very valuable to people. And on top of that, speaking as someone who has made money this year for the first time ever in my life, I've actually made a decent amount of money. It's actually pretty hard to invest money. When you have a nice nest egg of money, it's actually very difficult to deploy anything that's like $500,000 to $1 million because you want to parse that up a bunch of different ways. And so it takes a lot of time for you to say, okay, I'm going to choose these stocks over here. I'm going to invest in this company. I'm going to buy this crypto. I'm going to buy these houses. It can very much be an overwhelming thing to try to deploy your capital. If you you were given $1 million today and you had to invest it in a month, I think you'd have a hard time doing that. I mean, obviously you can dump it all into the stock market or into crypto. You can dump it all into one thing. But if you're strategically trying to place different investments in different places, it's pretty tough to do that. I mean, obviously if you're a very seasoned millionaire and that's what you do, like that's not so hard. But if you're really coming into a large sum of cash for the first time, it takes a lot of thought and process to make purposeful investments. And even if you're like, oh my God, you're so dumb, of course I can invest $1 million, blah, 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 I'll put it in the S&P 500. Okay, whatever, okay. Yes, again, you can invest it. And remember, if we're putting it in the stock market or in any traditional investment, we're gonna be looking at 7 to 10% where you're actively having to manage those funds. Whereas a deal like this is completely passive for the investor. So it's one less thing that they have to worry about. It's one less financial decision that they have to make or deal with. It's very cool whenever people make money with your money instead of you having to actively be in the weeds and use your money to make money. And on top of that, investors don't have to spend the time to learn a business. They don't have to learn the ins and outs of real estate or Airbnb because in theory, you're bringing that to the table. So it can really be a big relief for an investor that has money that's burning a hole in their pocket. Really, seriously, for real, I'm not kidding. Been there, done that. And then lastly, what I think a lot of people get hung up on is why would the investor give me 50% of the property? Or even the investor might say, why would I give you 50% of the property instead of 50% of the net proceeds? And in that case, it becomes less of a partnership and more of a management agreement. I think in today's age, people get really hung up on how traditional real estate arrangements are made, how partnerships should be formed, how investment structures should be structured and all that good jazz. And I think that we have to really separate ourselves from tradition and from norm to really start uncovering what can be a symbiotic relationship between two people. So I would say it's a fair objection for an investor to say, why would I give you 50% of this property? I'm the one that's paying for everything. But on the flip side of that, I think that we have to detach ourselves from the fact that it's a real estate investment and really start thinking of this as an investment where you pay into it. And once you pay into it, you're getting a monthly amount back. As long as the numbers line up, that's really what matters. I guess what I'm saying is that we have to take the emotion of it being a house and really start thinking of it as an investment that's gonna pay you. That's the TLDR there, or the TLDW, the too long didn't watch. So does 50-50 sound crazy to you or your potential investor? Maybe, but what if I said, hey, give me $100,000 and in return, I'm gonna give you $30,000 a year forever. Would you take that deal? Probably, because it's the shit. It's a 30% return. The investor would be crazy not to take the deal. But we're just so pent up on the way things have always worked that a lot of the times people aren't willing to consider unconventional structures that are actually significantly more beneficial for both parties. Anyway, that got a lot longer than I thought it was, but I guess what I'm saying is you can use investment money, you can use partners to really advance and accelerate your short-term rental business, all right? But you have to think outside of the box. When I got started in Airbnb, I started with an apartment that I subleased on Airbnb because I couldn't afford anything else. And then I got my house and I rented a studio under that and I built a tiny house in my backyard. And that was a really great start for me. And I did that with all the money that I could. But then I quickly started running out of money. I didn't have money. I wasn't rich. I didn't have that high of a paying job. I had a lot of debt. So I started getting creative and I started seeking out partners who saw my value, who said, hey, I will fund this if you run it. And then it would turn into, hey, I will fund this if you teach me. And now it's both. And I'm working with investors all over the country because they see the value of a passive investment. So ultimately, hustle's your selling point. So when you're talking to your investor, make it clear that you're there to hustle to make them money before yourself. If you can do that, I think you'll have a successful investment partnership. That's it. That's it. If you liked this video, if you learned anything from it, if it inspired you to become an Airbnb host, become an Airbnb host by clicking my link down below. You'll get a little bonus when you do that. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell so that anytime I talk about Airbnb or investments or tiny houses or anything like that, you're the first to know. With that, I guess that's it. Sorry, I was thinking, is there anything else profound I can say? No. Bye. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations, you're a super fan. Don't forget to watch these videos and don't forget to subscribe by hitting this button here. Also, everything that I just talked about in this video should not be considered legal or financial advice because I'm not a certified professional. Bye.